Hey, Karen V from Valori Huntress. Have you been wondering how to use your binoculars or just some tips and tricks to try and keep more steady? Well, keep on watching and I'll give you some of my tips.
Hello everybody, so some tips and tricks. If you don't have anything steady, use your shooting sticks. So like take this, set it on there, and it'll make it easier to try and figure everything out. With another tip,
staying quiet when you have buckles on your equipment, because buckles can be loud. You just put them together and click it. If you put it together with your fingers, kind of holding steady on the snaps of the buckles, you can keep it nice and quiet. You're putting it back together. You don't have to let it snap. If you haven't figured it out, on a lot of binoculars, they have these caps on the end that can extend out. And this one has 3 or 4 different settings on it. When you extend it out, it'll make the field of view smaller inside the binoculars. It can make it easier on your eyes when you're trying to focus farther out.
yeah, don't try and strain your eyes. Try and go in a red light position.
If you can't figure out how to keep still when you're trying to glass, take your rifle in this part right here where the stock meets the barrel. Set your binoculars right on top of it. Wrap your fingers around and grab right there. It's going to make it a lot more sturdy for you as long as you keep the butt on the ground.
Another tip is taking the bill of your hat if you're wearing one, bring it down a bit farther, have your binoculars in your hand, grab the bill of your hat and your binoculars at the same time. Be nice and steady, but you're going to be getting tired after a little while if you don't have any kind of bipod or anything.
When you first want to start looking for areas that you want to try and figure out where you're trying to scout, the best thing to do is look for the open areas, not just like the big giant fields, but along the edges of those big fields. Alrighty, so another few quick tips and tricks comes to stability. The best thing that you can do is actually have things on a tripod and not touch it as much as possible. When you're looking through especially spotting scopes and the really big heavy duty binoculars like I'll be using on the Utah hunt, the best thing that you need to do is not touch it. The less touching you do, the clearer the picture is going to end up. And when that happens, the best thing to do is you don't want to do this, because it just gets too shaky and it's not going to be super sturdy when you're trying to look at those far distances. So not touching is going to be your best thing for you. The best thing that you can actually do for yourself is actually to not look at the sun directly. So when that happens, it's just going to make it way too hard to actually see. Take glass with the sun at your back. Do that epic photo where the sun's just coming at your back and you just have a beautiful view. The reason why is it's going to make the lens look so much more clear and it's not going to get all up in there and it's make it not work. The sun at your back means it's going to look clearer and perfect through your binoculars. Other things, when it comes to spotting scopes, you really want to make sure that everything's sturdy. The wind's not going to be knocking around anything. So it's good to practice if you aren't used to using a spotting scope. Get used to it, take it out, go to a park and just sit there and glass. Try and get used to it. Try and see what turning all the different spots looks like. The clearer the view for you, the easier it is that you can tell how big that buck is on that hill. An extra tip is when it's really hard to see, like the sun's just not working out for you, if you put your hand right over the top just enough, it should help. Another really good tip when it comes to using binoculars and things like that, you always want to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you're not going to want to sit there and try and look through your binocular scope. So if you're sitting in a very uncomfortable way, you're not going to do yourself any favors. Make sure you have a glassing pad or sit comfortably, or if you're standing, don't be on your tippy toes trying to look through it constantly. Make it so it's comfortable for you. And tripods, like I said, are going to be your best friend. They're going to make things so much more easier for you, more than you will ever imagine. And the other thing is you really want to focus on trying to make sure you select a very good vantage point. You don't want something where it's super hard to see and you can only see a little bit of pieces at a time. You really want to make sure that you can see as much as you possibly can, so you're not wasting your time glassing in that spot. When it comes to looking, your depth perception is going to be off no matter what. You think it's that far, but it's really not. You think it's on the next knoll, it's not. Always make sure you have some sort of landmark to help help try and remember where you're trying to look. When you're trying to go from eyesight to your scope, it's gonna make things so much easier as long as you have something to go by. Try and find that one object and then go and find that deer again. The other thing is when it's actually cold, you wanna keep this as warm as possible. Because when it's cold and you're gonna be looking through it, your breath is just gonna fog it all up in there and it's just not gonna work well for you. So if you have an extra jacket, try and keep it as close to you as possible and keep that jacket over you so the heat from you will help keep it warmer. Now, when it comes to, everybody's like, oh, the bigger the better. Not always. When you get a bigger lens, you're zooming in so much more and you can only look at this little area versus a whole bunch more, and it's gonna be so much harder for you to go from point A of looking with your eyes to point B out there and trying to make sure it's the same spot when you have such a big lens of view. So when it comes to my dad's Utah hunt, we're gonna be borrowing some of his binoculars and spotting scopes. Like this here spotting scope is my father-in-law's and we're gonna be borrowing this on the hunt. When it comes to things like this, first you wanna start with like your 10x42s. Great, you can see a whole bunch, and then if I think I see something, maybe I'll move to the 1050. It's gonna zoom in a bit more, make things more clearer, figure that out, and then if I know it's something I really, really want and I need to look at, I'm gonna pull out the big boys at that point. And that way, if it really is, then I'm gonna pull out these big bad boys. These are the 20x80s. And at that point, I'm gonna know what the hell I'm looking at, and it's gonna make it so much easier. So bigger does not always mean better. And the last tip that I can leave for you guys, always keep them clean and secure. That's the best thing you're gonna do. The longer you keep them clean and safe, the longer you're gonna have it and even be able to pass it down to your kids one day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and the notification bell up at the top. And if you want more, go onto my Instagram and you can see a whole bunch of pictures, and I'll also be uploading the hunting video to my dad's Utah hunt very soon. But have a great day, guys.